Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. In, out. J'inspire, je sais que j'inspire. J'expire, je sais que j'expire. J'inspire, j'expire. Breathing in, my breathing becomes deeper. Breathing out, my breathing becomes slower. Deeper, slower. J'inspire, ma respiration devient plus profonde. J'expire, ma respiration devient plus lente. Plus profonde, plus lente. Breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I release all the tensions in my body. Aware of the body, releasing the tensions. J'inspire, je suis conscient, consciente de tout mon corps. J'expire, je relâche toutes les tensions de mon corps. Conscient, consciente du corps, relâchez les tensions. Breathing in, I feel calm. Breathing out, I smile. Calme, smile. J'inspire, je me sens calme. J'expire, je souris. Calme, sourire. Breathing in, I establish myself in the present moment. Breathing out, it's a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment. J'inspire, je m'établis dans le moment présent. J'expire, c'est un moment merveilleux. Moment présent, moment merveilleux.
Contemplation avant le chant. La Sangha est invitée à retourner à sa respiration. Ainsi, Notre énergie collective de pleine conscience nous rassemblera en un organisme, coulant comme une rivière, sans plus aucune séparation. Laissons la Sangha tout entière respirer comme un seul corps, chanter comme un seul corps, écouter comme un seul corps, et transcender les frontières d'un soi illusoire, nous libérant ainsi du complexe de supériorité, d'infériorité et d'égalité.
Đã về nương tựa tăng Mô Buddhaya. Về nương pháp trong con, xin nguyện cho mọi người nắm vững các pháp môn, cùng lên đường chuyển hóa. Nam mô Dhammaya. Về nương tăng trong con, xin nguyện cho mọi người xây dựng nên bốn chung, nhiễm hóa được muôn loài. Nam mô Sanghaya. Buddha Saranam Gacchami. Dhamma Saranam Gacchami. Sangha Saranam Gacchami.
So, let us enjoy 3 sounds of the bell before we begin with this Dharma talk this morning. And yeah, let us come. It's nice to see I still recognize you, some of you from behind the masks, and I hope you can breathe peacefully, enjoying your in-breath, coming back to your body, and just finding ourselves present here in the hall together as a Sangha, as a community, practicing together, enjoying the support of each other in the practice. So with the bells, we have a chance to come back and remind ourselves we have a body, we have a Sangha body, we have our breath. We can enjoy the energy of peace and calm together. So dear Thai, dear Sangha, today is the 28th of November, year 2021. We're together in the Assembly of Stars meditation hall in Lower Hamlet for our day of mindfulness together. And we have many neighbours of Plum Village today, which is wonderful. Somebody's waving at me. Okay. Okay, a few minutes more to breathe. And maybe sing a song. There is a song I thought maybe we sing in the middle of the talk, but maybe we sing it because it speaks a little bit to something of the... you're good now? Okay, thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. Yeah. Okay. We'll sing the song in French and English. And maybe English first. It's a song we all know very well. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew. I am solid as a mountain. I am firm as the earth. I am free. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. I am water, reflecting what is real, what is true. And I feel there is space deep inside of me. I am free, I am free, I am free. Quand j'inspire, quand j'expire, quand j'inspire, quand j'expire, je me sens comme une fleur, aussi fraîche que la rosée. Je suis solide comme une montagne. Je suis ferme comme la terre. Je suis libre. Quand j'inspire, quand j'expire, quand j'inspire, quand j'expire, je suis l'eau reflectant ce qui est vrai, ce qui est beau. Et je sens qu'il y a de l'espace trop profond de moi. Liberté, liberté, liberté. Thank you. Give yourself some flowers. Yeah, wonderful to sing in harmony as a Sangha. When we heard the chant this morning, I was reminded also of how we are, we chant as one body, like the Sangha is not an organization, it is an organism, and we are cells of the Sangha body. Chez moi, je suis arrivé. Il n'y a qu'ici et maintenant, bien solide, vraiment libre. Je prends refuge moi-même. Je suis chez moi, je suis arrivé. Il n'y a qu'ici et maintenant, bien solide, vraiment libre. Dans la tête, je m'établis. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I am solid, I am free, I am solid, I am free. In the ultimate I dwell, in the ultimate I dwell. So this morning I have been asked to share on the Diamond Sutra. This is a very magical, revered, old sutra, very well known, especially from the Mahayana tradition. One of the earlier texts, along with the Heart Sutra. It's quite famous, and its full title we give is The Diamond That Cuts Through Illusion. So it has this power. Sometimes the word Vajra means the thunderbolt that cuts through, but it's more commonly known as the diamond, so hard and be able to be sharp. It can cut through the illusions that bind us, that cause us to suffer. So we're going to look at how this sutra can help us with our suffering, liberate us from wrong perceptions, from notions that keep us a little bit caught in a sense of separateness. And we can see this sutra as something which has the intention and the power to give us a new pair of eyes, a new way to look. It can give us a radical new insight, the right view, the non-dualistic view of the nature of reality. If you like, we can get from this sutra the eyes of interbeing, how everything is interconnected. We are connected to the whole of life. And we know that intellectually. We know about ecology, the science of interdependence. But for us to experience it as a reality is a bit of a different thing. When we have an insight into something, it's not suddenly that we get a new idea or a new intellectual understanding. But for an insight to be a spiritual insight, a true insight, it changes the life. It changes our whole way of being. It has an effect on not just how we think, but how we act also. It changes, in a sense, where we're acting from. It gives us the eyes of interbeing. This sutra, Thai has termed the first, maybe the most ancient text on deep ecology. And we're going to explore into that. We're going to look into that and discover that. But also making it relevant, hopefully, to our own lives, which are interconnected. So your personal issues, not just your personal issues, they're somewhat connected to everybody's. And sometimes we wish it was not true, but the problems in the world also become our problems. The suffering in the world is also our suffering, not just of other humans, but also of all species. So this sutra is talking about, it guides us in that direction. There's an image that came to my mind when I was thinking about how to describe when you see things differently and you come into... And I remember when I was young, I was very taken with these images that had lots of dots on them. It made no sense at all. It's a bit like one of those QR codes you get when you take a COVID test, or something. Apparently there's lots of information in this array of dots, and yet you can't see anything. It's just a jumble, right? So, and this sheet of paper or things, just like that. This is well before QR codes. And you were told if you focus behind the piece of paper. Does anybody remember these? You get some hands, so you're sort of my age, right, maybe. I don't see them around very much now, but you focus behind the sheet of paper, and you have to kind of look behind, right? And at a certain point, a 3D image comes into your view, and you start to see, maybe it's a seascape, there's sharks and dolphins and fish and a treasure trove on the bottom of the ocean floor. And you can even kind of get into the picture and explore it around there. And it's very, puts you in a little bit of another world there, and you're thinking, wow, and then suddenly your eyes somehow revert back to just seeing the surface again, and you try for quite a while to connect again with the image that's behind. Maybe a little bit like that for our practice of when we try to look with the eyes of interbeing. We're not used to viewing in this way, and it takes some practice, right? It takes maybe more practice and more intuition than the trick of looking behind the sheet of paper, but it's possible. And once you've done it once you've looked and you've seen this image, you know it's there. There's no way you can deny it. It's like there's too much going on. It's not just an optical illusion. It's not a trick of the mind. For sure, there's a whole world behind this apparent mismatch of dots. So, like that, sometimes we kind of know the world of interbeing is somewhere there, and we we intellectually know, but what happens if we actually come into the experience of it? I think all of us have made an experience, for sure. It's just maybe we don't do it on a daily basis. I remember I had a group of teens for the teenage program in Plum Village, and they sat together with me in Shanghai, and I did a round, and I asked the question, who has had I gave them one example I had, and I asked them, has anybody got an example of a time where they touched something very profound in life? Maybe very simple, but something they don't forget, because somehow it was connecting them with the miracle of the present moment. I can't remember how I framed the question, but somehow they somehow clicked what I was talking about, partly because I gave an example, and each one of them shared something. My example was when I was 8 years old. I was with a friend in my local town in England, and I was at a graveyard behind a church, and we were looking at these old stones, these old tombstones, and we saw the inscriptions on them. These very lives from centuries ago, and it just somehow sent me somewhere into a kind of sense of the past coming. The presence of the past came to me as an 8-year-old boy, and it was touching something that was more than just thinking, because I remember it so vividly. It was a felt feeling, and so this kind of experience put me a bit behind the superficial, allowed me to touch something deeper. And with the practice, we're invited also just to simply connect with our body, our breath, to simply look to see nature around us. We have to calm our mind and our body to have a chance to connect with reality as it is. A lot of the time we're on autopilot, so to stop and calm is not to become sort of just very peaceful in a sort of slow sense, and just slow everything down and just, I'm just here. But it's actually to wake you up to the life in your body, to become aroused to what is going on in you, and to start to pay attention and start to pay interest, to become curious about what is here. And slowly we get more tuned in to ourselves, and we start to connect with reality deeper and deeper. And we can see special things from that place. And it's something we can cultivate as a practice. So that is, a bit of a prelude into the Diamond Sutra. Maybe with this sound of the bell, we can just allow ourselves to touch something. It's very simple. It can be our breath, it can be our body, but really know that whatever it is you're connecting with, this is real. What is real, what is going on. Mm. So yeah, as you listen to the talk, the invitation is to keep checking in with yourself, and maybe some of the things that I share land in a space which you can say, "Oh, this is relevant to me, to my life, and to help me connect with life more deeply and my suffering." Thai has said in relation to this sutra that we need to wake up to two things. First, the beauty of the world, for our nourishment, our healing also. To see the world through the eyes of interbeing is to simply to see that, to experience that things are interconnected and in beautiful harmony, actually, when they're allowed to be. Much of the work we have to do to help the planet restore health is simply to let it be. It knows how to restore itself, maybe with some assistance. Like in Upper Hamlet, we bought some land and some fences were built to keep the deer out, just so that the natural trees could have a chance to grow. Many species of trees will grow just given the chance. And the wild nature is so magnificent, you know. And it's so capable of regeneration. So waking up to the beauty of the world and allowing it to restore our balance, to nourish us. And the second thing, to wake up to when we're ready, when we have stability, is also to allow ourselves to connect with the suffering. When we've healed some and we have some stability, we recognize, there is suffering in the world, which is already something we're experiencing anyway, but we acknowledge and we say, this suffering is also my suffering. I'm not separate from that. And giving rise to the desire and the giving space for the energy to come, to act, to do something, to contribute. I have a feeling I'm going to run out of time, but that's okay. Timeless nature. The sutra is called in Sanskrit Vajra Chadika. Belonging to a body of work called the Prajna Paramita. Something like that. And Vajra means, I mentioned before, diamond, and this means cutter. So the diamond that cuts through illusion, because the prajna is the wisdom, the insight, and paramita is sometimes called the perfection of wisdom. But it can also be we like to translate it as the wisdom that brings us to the other shore, from suffering to, across the ocean of suffering to nirvana. Nirvana is not an actual separate place, right? But nirvana is often described as what we experience right here, right now, when we're free from notions and free from afflictions that often come as a result of notions, but we'll go into that too. So the diamond that cuts through illusion. And this, it's also interesting, just a bit of a historical note, because Ty once went with us to the UK and we stopped at the British Museum where they house a copy found of the Diamond Sutra that is considered the first book in human history, 1868, the oldest book, printed on mulberry pulp made from mulberry trees. It was in Chinese, and it was like 5 meter long scroll found in this cave of the 1,000 Buddhas in the Gobi. I think it's like Dunhung Cave near the I've never been there, near the Gobi Desert, but actually the text is now in the British Museum. But it's it's famous for that also. So it was printed for free distribution there. And this, but there's many versions of the Diamond Sutra in different languages. And as I mentioned, it's very revered text. So what else about the Diamond Sutra? What is the setting? So if I just say there's, you can read Thay's commentary on the Diamond Sutra and find out, there's many things to share about it. But I'll just start off by saying that there's a conversation between a venerable monk, Subhuti, and the Buddha. And to cut to the quick, Subhuti asks a question, which is to the Buddha. He says, what can we do? And it's assumed we're already on the path. We're already kind of walking the path of the practice and of being bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas being, wanting to offer and contribute to helping relieve suffering of all living beings. So Subhuti asks, what can we do to master our thinking in order to give rise to the most awakened mind? And the Buddha replies with an interesting, it kind of hits you sideways when you hear the Buddha's reply. Because he doesn't say, you should think like this or you should think like that. He does get there, but he starts by saying, well, first of all, you've got to save all living beings. So you just do that first, right? So however many living beings there are on the planet, you've got to save them all. You've got to bring them all from the shore of suffering to the other shore. You've got to bring them to nirvana, where they can be liberated. So that's pretty simple, right? So do that. He says, but, and here's the catch, when you've done that, you do not, in fact, think that you've liberated any living being. You don't give rise to the thought, I've liberated these living beings. You don't have that notion. So is the Buddha just saying simply, don't get big-headed about you saved living beings? No, it's going deeper. He's saying, because in fact you haven't. Because in truth there are no such things as living beings. Now this gets tricky, right? What is he saying? What is the Buddha saying? And yet he's saying, do it. Do this great action. This mission impossible. Once you've achieved mission impossible, but you didn't do anything. Why is this so, Subhuti? Because people are caught in the notions of a self, a human being, a person. They're caught in the notions of living beings and lifespan. And when we're caught in these notions, the Buddha said, we cannot really be free. Caught in these notions, we're not free to really, our actions are not truly the actions of a bodhisattva, of a great being. And he goes on to give an example of, and when you read the Diamond Sutra, the language is so, there's words like chiliocosms and how many ever grains in the Ganges. It's like, kind of blows your mind. Immeasurable benefit comes from just the smallest act of generosity if you are free from these notions. So it's quite an extraordinary statement. I'm reminded of Mother Teresa saying that we cannot do great acts. So the Buddha has just said you do this great act. But we can do small acts with great love. And for me, as much as this sutra gives you this incredible, crazy project to save all living beings, it also goes right down to saying, and the smallest act of generosity, from the right spirit, from the right place, immeasurable happiness. Small acts with great love. The mind, there's another place in Buddhism where immeasurable comes up a lot, the limitless, and that is the mind of love. If we cultivate the qualities of kindness and compassion, joy and inclusivity, we're cultivating limitless minds. Immeasurable. So acting from that place of love, our actions are powerful. If our generosity is from also a place of I am giving to you, it's not so powerful. And this is where the Diamond Sutra comes in. We're going to explore that. Because if you think in terms of there is a giver and a receiver, you're caught. And it's also in our experience, I'm sure, that when we have the opportunity to give and we're not caught in that notion, we know it's true. It's so much more joyful than if somehow we have this thought, oh, I'm giving to you. And it's truly a gift to be able to give. When I received the gift of Plum Village many years ago, there's nothing you want to do more than let other people know. But we're not a tradition that goes around proselytizing, right? But whenever we would go on a tour, there would always be people, because of the robes, that may come to you and be curious and interested. So whenever I was traveling, I would always make sure I had my tickets, my passport, and some Plum Village cards to give to people. Because I want people to receive when you've received something, the gratitude is there. You want other people to be able to touch that as well. So, let us explore then these four notions. I mentioned self, in Sanskrit, Atma. Human being. Or person, Pudgala. Living being. Sattva. And lifespan. Jiva. So, these are the four notions. And we want to look at them in terms of, okay, what is it about these notions that causes suffering? Why is it so important to let go of them? So we have to look at them and see how they play out in our life, in our mind, in our way of being, our way of acting. And we have to be honest with ourselves. Because as I said, intellectually we kind of know stuff about interbeing, about ecology, about our interconnectedness, but can we see how it's playing out in us? Because ultimately the purpose of the sutra is to give you a kind of cosmic kick for you to let go of these notions. But first you have to recognize how they're playing out in you. Let them go. Aware of the suffering caused, I let go of this notion. And maybe let go joyfully. When we can be free of these notions. So let us look at the first one, the notion of self. As soon as we have a notion of self, we have a notion of other, right? So I'm going to give myself some space here, just come back to these later. We have a notion of self. We set up other. If I am something, I have a self, then there is something that is something that is me, that I identify as me. Therefore there must be something that is not me, and that is other, right? We come into something that is used in the Prajnaparamita, particularly the Diamond Sutra, something, the dialectics, the kind of a kind of logic, method of logic. It goes something like this. Most people think that A is A, and A, by definition, this is a kind of mathematical principle of identity, by definition we're saying A is not equal to B. Self is not equal to the other. And there is a statement that goes, when we look deeply, we see that in fact A is not equal to A. And how can that be? So, well, I think we know the answer, but the example given is a Zen master who describes his meditation practice. He sees mountains and rivers before his meditation. Looking deeply in his meditation, he sees that the mountains are not mountains, the rivers are not rivers. he sees their true nature, and he sees they're made of non-mountain elements, and the rivers are made of non-river elements. And he concludes, having said that, having seen that, he can now look and say, those are mountains and rivers, not being caught by his idea of the mountains and rivers. He's able to go back and say, okay, now I've seen the true nature, but I can still call them mountains and rivers, and they're still beautiful. But I'm not caught by the label. This is a mountain, this is a river. Often all we're doing is seeing labels. That's a tree, that's green grass, and we're not actually allowing ourselves an encounter with the reality of it. So dropping the notions is also giving us an opportunity to encounter reality. It's like the notion has become, however useful it is in some ways, but it's become like a cataract in the eye, that makes the eye cloudy, that blurs our vision. So removing the notions is like to remove a cataract, and you see clearly again. A is equal to A, and then we see it's not equal to A, and therefore we can say A is equal to A. We're qualified to now call A, once we've seen that A in fact is not A. The flowers, the orchids here, are made of non-flower elements. The earth, the water, the sky. There is nothing we can find in the flower that is intrinsically flower. We can find many, many things in the flower, but we can't say, oh, this is the flower element. This is partly what this is saying. So in the flower you cannot find the flower. This is A, it's not equal to A. You find everything that it's made of, all the causes, all the conditions, including time and space and consciousness. And you realize, wow, okay, what is actually the flower then? Yeah. And then, so this kind of deconstruction, and then you say, you come back and you say, beautiful flowers. Yeah. So, the expression Thai likes to say is, everything is empty of a separate self. Something intrinsic to it as being this is not there. That is, it's just not there. There is no separate self. There is no self in anything. If what we mean by self is this separate self-existence. So that is what we know of the teachings. Interestingly, in this sutra, the Vajratidika, the term shunyata, meaning emptiness, doesn't show up, and yet it's all about emptiness. But maybe emptiness was a bit of a sick word at that time, because it's so associated with nothingness and void and the kind of nihilistic idea. There is, nirvana is extinction, there is nothing. But when we hear the teaching of Thai on emptiness, we don't get a negative feeling at all. We see that things are empty of a separate self, but they are full of the entire cosmos. So you yourself, whatever you think of, your idea of self, you're much, much more than that. And so you keep your mind open to what you truly are. There's a big spiritual question, isn't it? Like, who am I? And you keep your mind open to keep discovering more and more. and eventually you discover, you are also, you widen your view. And we're going to go there. So this is a bit the dialectics of the Diamond Sutra, that we look at self, we see it's not, there is no self, and then we're kind of safe to say, oh yeah, this is myself. We're no longer caught by the notion. So let us look again and say that self, the suffering caused by the notion of a self, is maybe first of all that we limit ourselves to something so small that is not even there, in a way. And we block ourselves from experiencing the reality. But the effect of having this notion also causes suffering in other ways. It makes us feel fearful of the other, or maybe we want to grasp the other, we have a desire for the other because we think they have something we don't have. We may be jealous, or we want something they have. Could be material, like I want their money, or it could be a quality, or I want their joy. Why do they have joy and I don't have joy? Why are they like that and I'm like this? At another level, we know we cannot live alone. Man is a social animal, and we look for a kind of tribe, people we can feel comfortable with. But we can also turn that into a self. Like these people are my people, and then there is also the other. So within the distinction of self, we also cause suffering by discriminating as groups of selves. That which I call, oh, they're like me. Yeah, I let them into my. Yeah. Maybe I let them into my heart, but I just, these are the people that I associate with. And then we have fear of the other, and of course we know how this plays out when we label another group. Yeah. Maybe we use all sorts of things like where you come from, a different region in your country, maybe the color of the skin, ethnicity. Maybe the divide is along the rich and the poor. And the rich fear the poor because they want to keep their wealth and keep their power. We become obsessed with that. And, it can quickly go into very destructive relationships, like master-slave kind of relationships. So we can see, and we do have, sadly, millions of people who are in modern-day slavery in this world in the present time. Not to mention just those that are, the social exclusion and exploitation of people by people. For what? Really, when it comes down to it, it's this fear. I have to keep what is mine to me, mine. We can go further, but I want to move, a little bit. But I want to also share. I mentioned about how finding Plum Village, and when we heard the contemplations before chanting, I was reminded of how we are cells of a Sangha body. So it's not always sort of negative that we identify with a group, but the spirit of the Sangha is also inclusive. Yeah? We're not here to make ourselves separate from others and to have a complex of superiority. But we want to be a refuge, the Sangha to be a refuge for all living beings. And when you think in terms of Sangha, in terms of community, suddenly this mission impossible of saving all living beings, it's like, well, actually, if we all did like this, take care of each other and support each other in the practice and the spiritual life and respect each other and live simply, things could be possible. When I first came to Plum Village, I had about 10 days here. Easter time. I remember there was they called it an Easter egg search, not a hunt. And I enjoyed my time, and I'd already read Thay's books, and I thought, okay, I need to come back here and stay longer. I maybe had this small idea that I might end up as a monk, but I knew for sure I was going to spend a good year, like a sabbatical from my work. I was living and working in Scotland at the time. And I remember I had to clear a lot of things away in order to come. And some of my friends were a little bit concerned. Are we losing Ben to Buddhism? One of them said. And I said to my friend, if anything happens to me, and I don't know, I wasn't worried about dying at that time. I was kind of, quite young, and but somehow it came to me, if anything does happen to me and you miss me, come to Plum Village, I'll be there. That's where the best of me is. In the spirit of Plum Village, in the way of life of the brothers and sisters there. That is, the brotherhood and sisterhood, the spirit of practice, the inclusivity, the kindness. That is the best of what in me that I want to be you to connect with, and that I aspire to, and that is where you will find me. And that was 20 years ago. And I can say the same now. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to say. There is somewhere. I know that if I wanted people to find me after I've gone, this is where I would say, oh, you come to Plum Village. So myself, I'm not just in this little body. I'm also in my brothers and sisters and in the practice to some degree. And hopefully Thay is in me and Thay is in you, so there is this spiritual interconnection. And so this idea of self, we loosen it up and we see we're more than we think we are. And we don't have to be so frightened of just maybe dying, because we know we're continued in many ways. Moving on to human being, the notion of a human being. How does that cause us to suffer? If I suddenly say, okay, I'm a human being, but what are we saying? We're saying we're human beings as an identity compared to other living beings, right? And that somehow us being human sets us apart. And so we go along the road of exploiting. We don't think, we even go so far as to, see, it might start off very simple, like, oh yeah, I'm a human being, but once if we're caught in that notion, before long, we think we're very special. We get the superiority complex. And we also disconnect from other species, and we think that they don't have feelings. They don't have emotions. They don't have their own worlds. I know I once, even I was a monk for quite a while, but I got quite a jolt when I watched a documentary about this animal communicator. And she kind of blew my mind, because she was able to communicate with animals through mind to mind. And it seemed like once you get over the scientific kind of, oh, that's not possible, you were quickly realizing that the world, the inner world of animals, is very full and very rich. And they have compassion. They think about things. There was a panther who was thinking about these two. She was upset because she was thinking about these two cubs that were not even her own, but that she was concerned for how they're doing now. So when the communicator was asking, what's going on for you? I mean, it was extraordinary to get inside view of the inner world of other animals. And we can do that. I had an experience recently. I was in... I don't communicate mind to mind and have conversations, but I did, not yet. I'd love to. I think it takes some special training. But I did go into the sea I was staying at my mother's fairly recently, taking time with my mother, and I went to the sea nearby, the Kamba Sands, and I walked, and it was very shallow. You had to walk hundreds and hundreds of yards just to get anywhere deep, and still I was just up to here. So eventually I just sat down in the sea because I wanted to kind of be in it. And this seal came to me. And I looked at the seal and our eyes made contact. And I think our eyes are amazing. Huh? When you make contact with an animal and you look in the eye, there is a real connection. And my eyes and the seal's eyes, and I looked a little bit like a seal. I was sort of just, bobbing up and down like this. And this seal's head also like checking me out. And the seal sort of did a bit of a round, He did full 360, and just maybe as close as Adam is here, and just went all the way around, and I just followed with my head. And it was a lovely experience. And then I was thinking, what happens next? Does it come up to me and start playing with me as another seal? And I got a bit nervous, and just at that point he went away. So maybe he sensed I was suddenly, But up until that point, our eyes were in contact, and I felt, oh yeah, we're making, connecting with a wild animal is quite something. And so making this reconnection with other living beings. And if we think of trees, they're very different from, dogs and cats and seals, maybe, but trees, what are they about? Are they good? They're good for paper. They're good for shade. They look nice, or maybe they provide fruit. So we're always thinking in terms of what we can get from them, right? But what are they, in fact? And another amazing woman called Suzanne Simard has written this book about her life connecting with trees, so I wanted to show you because I'm so amazed by her work. She discovered through science what she already understood as a child living in the forests, of the interconnection and the community spirit of trees, how they collaborate. They're not in competition. They collaborate, and they have, I'm sure you've heard of this now, it's quite common knowledge, the wood wide web, the mycorrhizae under the ground, forming this vast network which connects the trees to each other through their roots and they, through this symbiosis of the trees, through the roots to the mycorrhizae to other trees, there is this exchange of nutriments and minerals. The trees providing, producing from the sun the carbohydrates, feeding the fungi also, but getting the minerals from the soil that the fungi are able to get much more than the simple roots of the tree, and also communication between the trees and exchange of nutriments. So a mother tree will actually look after her young and see when they need more nutriments and send signals to make sure they get more what they need. All of these things, and they even say there's electrical transmission, and that the hyphae of the rhizae, they form the similar kind of connections like we have in the brain, and even the neurotransmitters are the same as we have in our brain. And they go so far as to say that there is intelligence in the forest. Not to anthropomorphize, or is that the word? It's just saying if you try to define intelligence, you cannot say that the forest is not intelligent. It's by the way it behaves, by the way it communicates. Not just underground, but also pheromones between trees, many things. So our notion of trees has to change when we get this information. And we have to drop our notions of what we thought they were, a limited idea. Yeah. They're living beings, they live in communities, and they have a story. So, human beings, we discriminate to other living beings, and we see how we do that. Children know very well that animals are, suffer, and they don't want to kill. I think naturally we would be vegetarians, but somehow the society, I'm going to say, brainwashes us to say, oh, no, don't look there. This is all very nice, and there is no problem here, and we just don't question. And then when we do start to question, we don't feel so supported in this intuition that maybe we would like to cause less harm to animals through the way we eat. So that is why in our contemplations we say, eat in such a way that keeps your compassion alive. Yeah? It's not necessarily saying never take meat, but be very, very reverential and be very aware of these beings are suffering when we kill, etc., for our plate. There is a beautiful expression, nature. If we take what we need, nature agrees to give. Yeah. So it's when we go in this gross kind of overconsumption that we are really causing the problems, but also our disconnect in our mind to nature, to other living beings. I'll end this part with a Scottish, I told you I did stay in Scotland for a while, but there's this poet from the 18th century called Robert Burns, and he writes a poem to a mouse. To a mouse. He's farming, he has a plough, and he turns up the nest of the mouse with his plough. And he sees this little wee mouse, tiny mouse, sort of very frightened, and his heart's going like this, and it's like, to see this big human who's just turned up its whole home with the plough, ploughing the field. And there's one verse that I can quote, which expresses this sort of sadness that we sometimes have as humans, to feel that we've become in this place of the dominant species, and all other animals are frightened of us, quite rightly. Like, I would be a bit disturbed if I saw a boar who wasn't frightened of me. I'd say, you should be, because others, and I don't. It's so sad sometimes, like that, but it's like that. The poem verse goes, "I'm truly sorry that man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion that makes thee startle at me, thy earthborn companion and fellow mortal." So he's showing he understands the connection, and there's a lot of respect and reverence in that poem. I may come back to a point on that. We go on to another notion of the four notions. The third one is living beings. So we've just been talking about connecting with living beings. Now, why is the notion of a living being a problem? Because it sets something up. As I said, if you set up self, you have other. If you set up living being, you have non-living beings. You have what we call going from the animate to the inanimate world. That which is alive and that which is not alive. And we make that distinction. And why is that a problem? Why is it not true that there is animate and inanimate, there are living beings and there are non-living beings? Well, we looked into also, for instance, the flower. We now know this flower is a living being, like us. And she is made of non-flower elements, just as we are. The water, the earth, the sky, the so-called inanimate elements are what we are. Where does our consciousness come from, if not a concert of interaction between these so-called inanimate aspects of ourselves, these elements? Tyers said the consciousness goes down to the electron. It's part of the fabric of life. There is not, you cannot draw such a cutting, dividing line between life and that which life came from. When we look at the history of the planet, it took billions of years, but life came from the inanimate, came from these elements. The principle of Gaia is that the biosphere, the earth, is a living being in herself, and she has her own consciousness. And we are an expression of that consciousness. But we don't need to be so proud. What I wanted to say when on the subject of human being is, we get proud of our ability to think and our ability to use language, and we think we're somehow special, right? And we can also get the opposite complex of shame as human beings. Shame because look what we've done. We've caused this monstrous mess as human beings, and then we have the idea, oh, it would be better if human beings disappeared from the planet. And that is also wrong thinking. It's our way of relating that is the problem, based on the wrong notions, not that we are here. In fact, I would say that right now, Mother Earth does need us to restore herself. She needs help because we've taken it so far. We can't just abandon. It's not even about numbers, population. The vast majority of the harm is not caused because we're numerous, but because of the way we're consuming. And it's not in harmony. It's not in harmony with life. So we come back to living beings. We start to question this divide between living beings and non-living beings through the understanding of no self, through the seeing clearly that we are made of earth elements, water, and I've made one experience I'd like to share with you. I had a chance after some 20 years. I told you I'd been in Scotland, and I went back fairly recently just for a couple of days I had with my cousin, and we went for a hike in the mountains of Scotland. But it was a terrible weather, and so when we were driving back, it was like rain was coming. It was almost quite treacherous just to drive, quite hard just driving. And there was this one mountain I used to climb when I was living in Scotland. I used to go often with a climbing club to the west of Scotland, to these mountains, and there was this one mountain that I was very fond of. And it sort of felt like, it was, I really wanted to reconnect. But the weather was too bad, and we were driving, and I could hardly even see this mountain. It's called the Buchel Etif Moor. And it's a massive chain of mountains, a kind of group of mountains. But there's this one you can see from the road, and I'd spotted it, in the rain, and I said, got to get out and just at least step outside, put on rain jacket. It was pouring with rain. Went and just looked at the mountain from a distance, from miles away, and just thought, wow, that is so beautiful, But I still felt, okay, now it's time to get back in the car. But instead, I just thought I'd just go a little bit closer to the mountain. I just walk up a little bit so I can just feel that sense of the mountain a bit more. And then as I picked up my pace, I just wanted to go further and further, and very soon I was absolutely soaking wet, and I was finding myself wading through streams that shouldn't have been there because the rain was coming down, and I was enjoying being wet because it felt more like I was in contact with the ground and with the weather. And the weather in Scotland, it's the most obvious place to see where the weather interacts with the land. You feel the weather and the land are inseparable. And it was wet and windy and gorgeous and squidgy underfoot. And I made my way up to, kept on clambering and sclambering, and my cousin I'd left behind. I was worried that if I stopped, say, it's time to go back, we can't stay here. Right? So I kind of went quickly, and the more I got up, the more I wanted to go up further. And eventually I got to this big black slab of granite rock that you can't go any further. I'd sort of clambered up and on moss and lichen, and I got to the rock, and I felt, okay, this is as far as I can go. And I kissed the rock, And I felt so, basically one of those moments. One of those moments you can't describe. They're beyond the words. And we all have them from time to time, right? This incredible connection with the land. And we're so lucky to have that. And it's, for me, it's so much easier in the wilderness, in the wild places. We need to make our reconnection with Mother Earth, and we need to, as I was saying, wake up to the beauty of the earth to get the healing. We need that reconnection. The Buddha had his Bodhi tree. What is your tree? What is your Bodhi tree? Your place in nature where you go to a sacred place that knows you. You know that place and that place knows you. It's possible, to find a place that you make a relationship with and you feel it, that this place knows me now. Yeah. So that, again, that puts into question this whole thing of animate and inanimate. This idea of, the land, there's a consciousness there. There's consciousness in the soil, in the air, in the rivers. And we can connect with it. It belongs to us. It's part of, we're into being with it, right? So the last notion, I have to quickly whiz through our lifespan. Okay, so making space. Our lifespan is a notion which also causes us to suffer. I was born, for you guys, I was born, then I die, right? And in this time I was alive and I was a being. Before that I was nothing, after that I'm nothing. That's one view. And that period may be, if we're lucky, something like 70 years, I don't know. I enjoy to be with my mother who's 85. And she's still going, and I hope she lives longer. But the invitation is to see my mother in me, my parents in me, my ancestors are all alive in me, and that I transmit also to those that I am in contact with through my actions of body, speech and mind. It's our actions that continue. Our actions of body, speech and mind, that's what flows on. In other people, in the land, in what we love. So, when we talk about lifespan as being from here to here, okay, but remembering life is a cycle, and that somehow we continue both from the past, we contain all of the past, and we go into the future. So we are invited as practitioners, as meditators, to really question this notion of our lifespan. And sometimes it can help just to remind ourselves that birth and death is taking place in our body all the time. Millions of cells being born and dying all the time. So what is this? And if you think of humanity, human beings, what is humanity's lifespan? Recently I went on a walk with an app. It means I had some headphones, I played the app. It was a 4.6 kilometer walk. And it's each kilometer represented 1 billion years. So this 4.6 kilometers was to represent the age of the planet, from its birth, from supernovas, from the sun to forming itself as a globe, to the moon coming off, until the present moment here. Here's the present moment, and here's the beginning of the Earth's so-called lifespan. Right roughly in the middle is when they say that living beings were so numerous that they began to affect the geology and the climate of the Earth, and that's when they say Gaia was born, because it became a self-regulating system, the living being nature of the Earth. And I'm already questioned the distinction between it came from the inanimate, but the Gaia principle of this kind of self-regulating planet, roughly 2,700 million years ago. And as a result of this homeostasis, this keeping in balance with its life, keeping conditions for life to continue, we have 10,000 times more water on the planet than we would if there was no life. Otherwise it would have gone. So keeping the conditions for life is a function of the planet's life on the planet itself. How long did it take for soil to be soil? How did it come here? All of this happened in this huge, long space of time. Fungi had a lot to do with it, lichens, as well as weathering. And then you get to the human race, and we are 200,000 years, give or take, that we appeared. And that doesn't really even measure as a dot here. So the lifespan of the human race is very tiny. We could make ourselves feel very small when we consider the lifespan of the human race in relation to the lifespan of this planet. If you turn this into a time thing, you have 24 hours instead of 4.6 kilometers, 24 hours, then the lifespan of humanity to the present moment is the time for one breath. That's the human race. So what is this lifespan? We contain in one human, although we are so insignificant in this sense, and yet all of this, these billions of years, the history of the planet is also us. We're not separate from that. It's only when we define ourselves as human beings and are caught in that label, okay, you're a human being, no problem, wonderful. But when we're caught in that label, we disconnect ourselves from the reality that we are way, way more than that. That's why we can say, yeah, I am this self, I am this human, I am this living being, but I'm much more. I do have this mortal nature. I was born, I die, but my lifespan is immeasurable. And that can also give us a sense of responsibility back. We don't just belong to this life. Oh, we messed it up. It's okay because I'm getting out of here. We continue in the future, and we have to think immeasurably, because we are immeasurable beings and non-beings. whatever, somewhere in the middle between this notion of being and non-being. So we have to let go of these notions, touch reality as it is, and allow reality to teach us also what we have to do, what is our part in the world, and how to touch that reality. Because if we are able to, we are accessing great love. We're accessing a lot of power to be able to bring into the world. The earth has qualities that we need: patience, inclusivity, great resilience, stability. There's a poem by Emily Bronte, who is, she died at the age of 30. Her lifespan was very short. She got tuberculosis, and in 2 years, the end of her life, she was very much in touch with the spiritual. And she wrote a poem that began, "No coward soul am I. I'm not a coward. No coward soul am I on this earth's storm-troubled sphere, on this world's storm-troubled sphere." So even then, this was back in 1840, I think, she recognized, the storm is almost like predicting climate change, this storm-troubled sphere. But she said, she was talking about the great love that pervades everything. Thy, see if I can remember, with wide embracing love, thy spirit animates eternal years, pervades and broods above, changes, dissolves, sustains, creates and rears. Those were her lines, describing the great force of love that keeps things going. And we are part of that, we can access that. And through our small acts, we can bring great love. So when we go today from the Dharma hall, forget everything, all the notions. Just allow yourself to be with yourself and with the Sangha, with your steps. Connect with Mother Earth. Connect with your picnic lunch. The lettuce. When we don't have processed food so much, and we have like lettuce that came from the Happy Farm, we feel so great, like we're getting direct energy from the soil from here. Yeah. So eating for our joy, and also eating, wishing compassion for all living beings, and being aware that there is suffering, yes, and that I'm not disconnected from that. And it's also part of my job to be stable like the earth, to be the bodhisattva that I can be. The earth is, Thai says, is the most beautiful bodhisattva, and we are here to do her work. The earth is a Sangha, and we're part of that Sangha. We're cells in the Sangha body. So, a little exploration into the Diamond Sutra 2,000 years ago has some some relevance to us now. So thank you for your practice. Here's 3 sounds of the bell. Little time to massage our feet, and then we stand up. I'm sure you're looking forward to breathing fresh air outside. But I think there'll be an announcement or two. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Brother Pháp Lai, for sharing.